In this video, I'm going to show you how to play a practice game of Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Now the game is played in rounds and it goes clockwise from player to player. Now during each player's turn, they need to do 3 steps. Now this little legend here will help you to remember what you need to do. So the first thing you do is you do 4 actions, and those are the actions that are outlined on your actions card that you received when you picked your player token. Then you will draw 2 cards, and during that time you'll resolve any epidemics, and you'll discard your hand back to 7 cards so that you never have more than 7 cards in your hand. And the third step is to infect cities. So it's player 1's turn, and they're going to do the first step, which is do 4 actions. Now the actions are on that card that you received when you selected your player token, and there's 4 on the front and 4 on the back. You can do up to 4 actions. You can do a combination of actions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of these actions and show you how to play them, and we'll do that before we get into the game. Now the first action on the card is drive ferry, which means to move to a city connected by a white line. So you can see I have my token here, and I can move from Atlanta to Washington, and that's one action. Now if I wanted to, I could use all 4 of my actions by doing that between cities. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see each of those cities was connected by a white line. The next action on the card is a direct flight. Now what I can do here is discard a city card to move to the city that's named on the card. So I have Delhi. So what I could do is I could take my token and I can fly directly to Delhi. But then I must discard this card, so I put that in the player discard pile. But it gets me to this area here where I can start curing diseases. And for the next action, I can charter a flight, and that means I can discard any city card that matches the city I'm in and move to any city. So I have Los Angeles here, so let's pretend I was in Los Angeles. Now I can discard this card and I can fly to a city that needs assistance. So I would fly to perhaps Algiers, and then I discard the card. Now for the next action, you can take a shuttle flight, and that means you can move from a city with a research station to any other city that has a research station. So in this example, we have a research station in Khartoum. Now I'm over here with the research station at Atlanta. So I can take my token and I can just go straight over to Khartoum. Now for this action, this is the one on the next side of the card, I can build a structure. Now I can discard the city card that matches the city I am in to place the structure there. So I'm in Hong Kong. Now I have a Hong Kong card in my hand. So what that means is I can take a structure, I can build it in Hong Kong, and I can discard that card. So I now have a research centre in Hong Kong. Now you can treat disease as an action. So what you do is you're in a city and there's some disease cubes there. So you can take 1 cube as an action, and you remove that from the board. Now if that colour has been cured, then you can take all of the disease cubes from the board. But if the disease hasn't been cured, you can only take 1 at a time. So if I took 1, it would be 1 action. If I took another one, it would be 2, and another one would be 3 actions. Now the next action is share knowledge. Now you can either give the card that matches the city you are in to another player, or you can take that card from another player. But the other player must also be in the city with you. So for this instance, we are both here, both our tokens are in Montreal, and I have the Montreal card. Now I can give this to player 2, or if I needed it and she had it, she could give this card to me. Now the last action on the card is discover a cure. So at any research station you can discard 5 city cards of the same disease colour to cure that disease. So I have 5 cards here. So I'm in Atlanta and that has the research centre. So what I can do is discard those 5 cards. So I put them in the player discard pile over here. And then I can move the treatment token up to show that this disease has been cured. Now it hasn't been eradicated yet, so we can't turn it to that side. We just leave it face down in that position. So the object of the game is to cure these 4 diseases down here, and we do that by gathering cards. Now we need to have 5 cards in one colour to cure an illness. So that's our object. We need to collect these cards and we can cure a disease. So let's start off by doing our 4 actions. So I take my token and I make 1 action, which moves me from Atlanta to Chicago. My second action is to take that disease cube from Chicago and remove it from the board. So that's 2 actions. Then my third action is going to be coming to San Francisco. Now you can see on the board here I can fly to Tokyo or I can fly to Manila. I'm going to fly to Tokyo and then I can start helping to clear the other side of the board. So I come over here and I go to Tokyo, and that's my 4 actions. So I've done those. Now the next step that I have to do is draw 2 cards. So I took 2 cards from the player file, and you can see I've got a red card, which is great. That means I can start collecting reds, try to collect the reds to cure red illness. And I've got a black. So I still have under 7 cards, so that's okay. I don't have to discard any. And we didn't get any epidemics, so I don't have to resolve those. Now the next step is to infect cities. So we come up here to the infection deck, and we take the top card. You can see here it's an Osaka, and it needs a red disease cube. So I get a red disease cube, and I put that over on Osaka. Place the card on the discard pile. Now take another card. We have to take 2 because, as you can see, our infection rate here is 2, so we take 2 cards. And the next one's Baghdad, so I need to take a black disease cube, and I'm going to put that on Baghdad. So now I just discard that card. Before we go on to player 2's turn, I just want to talk about my character card. Now it says I could do up to 5 actions each turn, and I missed that because I didn't look at the character card. So just remember, it's quite important to see what your character can do. So now we'll go on to player 2's turn. These are player 2's cards, and we're now going to do player 2's 4 actions. So instead of just hopping from city to city like we did before, player 2 has got a card that he can fly to get into the thick of it over here. So we're going to take this token and we're going to fly to Istanbul, and that is 1 action. Now once we've done that and used that card, we need to discard it. So we have 1 action here. So now we need to come down to an infected city, and that's 2 actions. Now we have the medic character card, and he can remove all cubes of 1 colour when doing the treat disease action. Remember, the treat disease action is on your card here, and it's one of the actions that you can do. So for his 3rd turn, he can take all of these disease cubes, not just 1. So that's really handy. So we'll take all of those disease cubes and remove them. So we've now done 3 actions. Remember, we flew from Atlanta to Istanbul, that was 1. We came down to Algiers, which is 2, and then we removed all of the cubes, which is 3. So for his 4th action, he's going to move up here to Paris. So he's all ready now to be able to take those cubes for the next turn. So that's all 4 actions done. So now it's time to draw 2 cards. So we draw 1 card. Oh, that looks good. We've got 3 yellows there. And we draw another card. Oops, we've got an epidemic. So we have to always resolve the epidemic first. If that had come out as the first card, we would treat this before taking the second. Alright, so what we need to do is move the infection rate marker forward 1 space. So that's up here, so we move it up 1 space. And then we draw the bottom card from the infection deck, and we put 3 cubes on that card. So we'll just get the bottom card. And it is Los Angeles. So what I need to do is to put 3 yellow cubes onto Los Angeles. And then we just discard the card. So that's step 2 of the epidemic infect stage. And now we're going to intensify the infection. And to do that, we take the discard pile and we shuffle it. And this is going to give us more possibilities of outbreaks, and we place them top down on the infection pile. So we've now done step 3 of the epidemic, so I can now discard this card and I just pop it aside and I put it by the edge of the board. We come back to what we were doing, so we resolve the epidemic, which we've done, discard back to 7 cards, which we don't have more than 7, and now we're going to do step 3, which is infect cities. And to do that, we come back to the infection pile. We take the top card, and it's Istanbul. So we take a black token, and we place that on Istanbul. So now we take the next card, and it's Los Angeles. Now Los Angeles already has 3 cubes. So what this means is that we have an outbreak. So we move our outbreak token up 1, And what we do is we take some cubes and we place them on every city that's attached to Los Angeles. So where there's a direct line, and we place a yellow cube because the infection is coming from Los Angeles, which is yellow. We've also got another one down here. Okay, and you can see we've got one in Sydney, so we're going to have to go across and put one over here on Sydney as well. So that was an outbreak. So we've played a few rounds, and during that time we've had a couple more epidemics. Now that means we've moved our infection rate marker up, so that's now up here. And we've also had an outbreak here in Sydney, which means we've had to move our outbreak marker up as well. Now in the meantime, player 2 has managed to collect all 5 cards that he needs to be able to cure one of the diseases. Now to do that, you need to be in a city that has a research station. So he either needs to be in Atlanta, or else you can build a research station as part of your actions, providing you are in a city where you have a matching card. So you can see here that he could actually get to Essen, he has a card, and he can build a research station. So we'll just go through the turn. So we take our actions, we go 1, 2. So now he's in Essen, can take that card and build a research station. So action 3 is doing that. Now for action 4, he needs to discard all of these 5 cards. So we just take those and put them in the discard pile. And we now move the yellow marker up to here, and it shows that that disease is cured. Now you don't have to completely eradicate a disease in order to win this game. All you need to do is to cure all 4 of the diseases by being able to bring those tokens up to here. Okay, but if you can eradicate a disease, it does help you in the game. Alright, so now we need to finish off player 2's turn and take 2 cards. We have 2 cards. Now we need to do the infection level. Now you can see here that it's up on the 3, so what we have to do now is take 3 of these cards. Alright, so we've got Algiers, so we need to put a disease token on Algiers. We have Paris, we need a disease cube on Paris. And we have Kinshasa. Now because we've only cured the disease and we haven't eradicated it, we still have to put a cube on Kinshasa. And that's an outbreak. So what we need to do, again, is place a cube on each of those connecting cities, and we need to move our our outbreak token up 1. And then that goes on the discard pile. So players continue taking turns until you either win the game or lose the game. Now to win the game you need to have all 4 cure markers in these positions up here. You don't have to have eradicated any of the diseases as long as you have treated them or cured them, and they sit up here. Now to lose the game, if the outbreaks marker reaches the skull down the bottom here, you lose the game. You also lose the game if you run out of cards. So if the last player can't take 2 cards at the end, you lose the game. And the last way that you lose the game is when you run out of these disease cubes. Now if you run out of 1 colour, that's it, game over. So that's the idea, is to make sure you've always got a supply here by clearing them off the board. So just a couple of things I want to clarify for you. And the first of them is how to eradicate a disease. So as you know, we have treated this disease, so it's cured, but we haven't eradicated it. So what we do to eradicate it is to remove, during our turn, all of the cubes from the board. So once we've done that, there are no longer any red cubes, then that means that this disease has been eradicated. So we turn our token over so that it shows the circle on the top. And then what also happens is the next time we take an infection card, so in here we have Shanghai, it's red, I don't have to put a disease cube on the board. So we no longer have to play the red disease cubes because the disease has been eradicated. Now the next thing I want to talk to you about are the funded event cards. Now you'll have some of these in your player deck, which you set up at the start. So these cards, when you draw one of these, you take it into your hand. You can play it at any time, so you can play it when you've drawn it, you can play it during another player's turn. and it's not considered an action, so you don't have to use one of your actions to play it. And they have some special abilities that you can do. So this one here says skip the next infect city step, which means you do not flip over any infection cards. So that can be a help if you've got a lot of cubes on the board and you want to have a bit of a break. This one here says remove 2 disease cubes from the board. Also helpful if you've got cities where you've got 3 cubes. Now there is one exception to the rule of playing this at any time, and that is during an epidemic. When you draw an epidemic card, you must resolve the epidemic all the way through. You can't use one of these during this process, so you couldn't go increase your infection rate marker and then play one of these cards. So this one has to be done in its entirety, and then you can play your event card.